Hi, I'm Dr. James Rouse, and welcome to your Vitality Zone opportunity. And this is interesting, Roger. I think for many people, this is something that it's one of my favorite classes you teach. It's the first things first.
Oh, yes.
And probably for everyone who's ever been in the area of looking at themselves as being a priority, when it comes to your self-love and self-care, especially with wellness and health, how would you help coach someone to that idea that you really can be the top of your priority list?
You know, we've got to move the most important things up front. And that's what we tend not to do. What that whole system is about is teaching us that urgency sometimes takes over and squashes our lives. And so we become urgency addicts, always putting out a fire here, keeping our schedules tight and burning the candle at both ends. And we don't do the important things. And so our lives suffer in one way or another. Our relationships suffer, even our jobs suffer because we don't do the kind of planning and the kind of quality nurturing and relationship building that could have breakthroughs. And so we subtly sabotage ourselves by not having a plan around what's important. You know, our lives are really about what's important. So here's my encouragement. As you get into this Vitality Zone planning, planning's the key. You've got to have a plan for your week. Now, you might create a template that goes from week to week that works. It's got to be conscious. Otherwise, old patterns, we know how that is, old patterns, old habits, old ways of being slip in, and before we know it, we say we don't have the time. We didn't have a plan to have the time. So, you know, it's that old analogy that the professor, he had a big bottle with a wide open top at of the bottle, and he piled in a bunch of fist-sized rocks as his class watched on, and when he got the rocks up to the top of the lip of this bottle, he said, "Is it full?" And they said, "Yeah, it's full." And he said, "No, it's not." And he picked out some pea-sized gravel and poured it in and settled it in among the rocks. And he says, "Is it full?" Well, they'd caught on by now. And they said, no, it's not full. And so "You're right." And he got some sand. He poured it in there and he shook it and got the sand in there. He says, "Now, is it full?" And one sharp person said, no, it's not. And he said, "Aha, you're right." And he got some water. And he poured the water in there and filled it up. And he said, "Is it full?" And there was pause. And he said, "It is full." He said, "So what's the lesson in this?" And somebody said, "You can always get more in your life." He said, "No, that is wrong. That is not the meaning of this. The meaning is that if I hadn't put the big rocks in first, they'd have never gotten in. And putting them in first, all the other stuff settled in around them, and it worked out." And I think that's what this Vitality Zone video is about, is inviting you to look at what are the big rocks, what are the quality things I can do, especially in my wellness. What am I going to do to start an exercise program, maybe incrementally, but to start? And when is it going to happen so that it doesn't get crowded out by the urgencies, the fires that are burning? I also encourage at some point some quiet time, some meditation, some centering. There's even been studies, James, and maybe you're more familiar, about how meditation actually reduces the lactate that exercise builds up in our bodies.
And at the same time helps to be one of the most important factors in actually bumping up your willpower.
Yeah. And then some menu planning, because we've got to be conscious about this, or we get hungry and we look around and we go for the tempting stuff that isn't the good stuff. So when do we shop? Erica and I, when we got into this kind of stuff that the Rouses helped us in, we had a certain time, usually Sunday evening, we'd plan a menu for the week. And then we'd rotate. I'd go to the store one week and get the stuff, then the next time she would, and we had everything we needed. And it took some consciousness about it and some planning. So the big rocks, and then time for you. Maybe this Vitality Zone is not just about our bodies, but about the whole of our lives. Time for you that's quality. Time for your key relationships. If you have kids, quality time with them. And not just the doingness that we can get into, or with your partner, your spouse. Quality time with key relationships. You'll find you get those big rocks in, things will begin to work. And remember, as we've said, in this think, eating, and moving, start with what you can begin to do. Don't overdo it, but then keep building week by week. Get the big rocks in there first.
I love that, and I think the beautiful thing about the big rocks is really seeing your self-love and your self-care as the biggest rock you have. Yeah. Put that one in there first and just watch how the other rocks build around that.
Yeah.
It's an awesome opportunity, Roger. I really appreciate that.
This whole thing is about you matter, and your life is what you mold, and you can make it what you want to make it.
So, welcome to your Vitality Zone, and welcome to your self-care. You are a big rock of self-love. Make it happen today.
Many blessings.